You can use AI to then create things that maybe it'll take you an hour to write like a 5-page report on something, but you could have AI generate it in like 2 seconds, and then you can spend the next 30 minutes going over it and making sure that it looks right and there's no factual errors and whatnot. And hey, like 30 minutes in a couple seconds is a lot quicker than an hour and a half.
Welcome back to the Main Street Marketing Podcast. I am Nate Kufal in today for Skip Ranke. And today we got Matt Phelps here, who's going to be talking about AI. He was previously on a podcast where he was talking about cybersecurity, but talking about AI today. So, Matt, glad you could join us today again. And so, first of all, tell us a little bit about what you do and how it relates a little bit to AI, perhaps.
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Nate. Happy to be here again. So I work for a cybersecurity company, and I deal with application security. So we try to secure applications that we develop before we release them out to customers. And as part of that, there's some AI aspects to that. So I've done a couple talks at some cybersecurity conferences around AI, and figured it'd be fun to talk about AI here as well.
Okay, so if you could explain to us, I think a lot of people, this is kind of the new buzzword. It's the new thing that everybody's kind of talking about, but I think a lot of people don't really know what exactly it is. So if you could try to explain what exactly is AI.
So I like to think of it as a prediction engine. I'm not a data scientist. I'm not like a genius at like any of these AI things, but the way I like to look at it is a prediction engine. So for example, like if I were to say to you, peanut butter and, based on your experience and the knowledge that you have that you've developed over your life, you might think jelly automatically in your head. If you're an Elvis impersonator, you might think peanut butter and bananas. If you're my wife, you might think peanut butter and chocolate. So everybody might have a little bit different data that helps them predict what the next word is, and AI is very similar in the same case, where they try to take all this data, and that it could be different based on what data is fed into the AI, but then it'll try to predict what's the next word in the sequence. So yeah, like peanut butter and could be jelly. And it does the same thing with when you ask it questions, like for example, like if you go to ChatGPT and say, hey, write me a summary of this, it will then use those prediction algorithms to try to predict what's the next thing that completes that, which to us kind of looks like an answer, but to an AI, it's just trying to predict the next in the sequence.
That's very interesting because I've never really heard it explained that way before. So it's a predictor in a sense, or at least that's the way you're describing it.
Yeah, or a sequence completer. Yeah, like if you have a sequence of data, what's the next part of that data? So like if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the next might be 6, 7, 8, 9. So it does very similar things. It just, when you stick in huge amounts of data, it can find patterns very sufficiently easy enough to create some of these answers, which I think is fascinating.
Right, and I've always heard it said, because it needs the information that's put into it in order to really do anything, correct?
Yeah, well, like you were saying before when we were chatting, garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
So like it all depends on like what's the data that's going into the AI. That'll determine what data is coming back out.
Right. So now, because we're starting to see a lot of businesses start to use AI, or at least use the term AI in a lot of their marketing for, I guess, new products or whatever that they're offering now. So how have you seen, I guess, AI start to be used in business?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things is I've been seeing AI, especially if you've heard of OpenAI, ChatGPT. They deal a lot with what they call natural language. So rather than dealing with like numbers and sequences and numbers, they're dealing with sequences in human language, which is wonderful for anybody who's trying to like write a paper. Or I know I've seen some people, they use that to generate emails and do like auto responses for their emails, which it could be good or bad depending on how it's being generated. But the generative content or the generative nature of it has been something that I've been seeing a lot, because you can use AI to then create things that maybe it'll take you an hour to write like a 5 page report on something, but you could have AI generate it in like 2 seconds, and then you can spend the next 30 minutes going over it and making sure that it looks right and there's nothing, no factual errors and whatnot. And hey, like 30 minutes and a couple seconds is a lot quicker than an hour and a half. So like the time saving aspect of it has been something I've seen a lot of companies jump right into.
For sure. Yeah, yeah. I was actually just yesterday looking into a new, I guess, something Adobe offers in
Oh yeah.
its Creative Suite. I'm in video production, so I use part of that. I use Premiere Pro, and just yesterday I found out about something that I think is new, called Adobe Enhance or Enhanced
Okay.
Speech or something like that.
Oh.
And it's basically it's offered within the Adobe package in Premiere, but it takes your audio. If you got bad audio, it'll take that and through AI, I guess it cleans it up, and it'll take if you got a lot of echo in the room or something like that, it'll take it and it'll actually clean it up for you and make it sound a lot better than it previously did. So I guess that'd be another example of and
Yeah.
that kind of brings another question in is like we talk about AI, but it seems to encompass a lot of
Yeah.
different things, a lot of like you have, like you said, it's helping with writing, writing content. If it's scripts or something, it can you give it certain input and it'll spit out maybe not exactly what you want, but it'll at least
Close enough stuff. Yeah.
get you in the right moving in the right direction. So it's a time saver in that way. Um, but then it does other things where it does like speech corrections and stuff like that. So it seems to do a lot of different things. Now
Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering myself, this is stuff that's been around for a while,
Hmm.
and are we starting to see is kind of like the idea that we're kind of seeing the stamp of AI being put on a lot of these things. We're just seeing the whole buzzwords, come around right now to like, okay, this is AI and this is AI. And so every company's got its own version of AI.
Yeah, yeah, that's very interesting because, I mean, yeah, everybody seems to want to hop on the AI bandwagon these days. Uh, so in many cases, it is a buzzword. A lot of companies are like, "Oh, well, we had ChatGPT do something, so now, hey, our product is AI because we sent something through AI once." Or there's other companies who've been doing AI things for years. They've been using models to predict things for a long time, but nobody really cared about the math behind it. But now that everybody somewhat knows what AI is, then they can put this AI stamp on it and say, hey, like we need to market ourselves better. We have AI. We've been using this. So you do definitely have a lot of that because, yeah, to your point, like a lot of these mathematical prediction models have been around a long time. The new bit is just the amount of data that's being sent to these models. We're finally at the point where we can actually support um, a lot of this data being sent through these mathematical models. I might have mentioned it a little bit in the last podcast that I was on here. Uh, a lot of this math, we didn't have hardware capabilities to compute that amount of data before. But now with what Nvidia is doing, if you have any Nvidia stock, you've been seeing like that's been going pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that is because they've discovered technology and ways to make it easier to send that quantity of data through this existing math that's existed for years. And so now that we actually reasonably can send that quantity of data through these mathematical models, now you're seeing everybody who's like, oh wow, we can actually use it for language, we can use it for audio enhancement. I don't know the model type for audio enhancement, but then I know Adobe also has their generative fill, which
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
uses,
that's a big one right now. A lot of
yeah.
people, even people who work at Paragon, I
uh,
know, who use the generative fill. So, and I've used it myself. So It's pretty cool that it can actually do that.
Yeah, it uses a model called a diffusion model, which sounds all fancy, but basically what it does is it'll try to predict the next pixel in the sequence, and then you run it and run it again and run it again, run it again, and eventually through this process you'll start seeing like something that looks like an image, but it'll just because of our hardware it'll happen so fast that you might run through it like dozens of times in not that long of a time. Or if you're using, I think generative fill with Adobe, I think it might actually run on some of their hardware in the cloud as well, and then comes back down to you, and you're just sitting there, and all of a sudden, like you have like this cool thing pop in your picture, which is, it's really cool. I've messed around a little bit with making pictures through AI, and it's always fun what you can what you can do there.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that goes back to what you said earlier, that it's kind of a predictor. So it kind of, like you said, it kind of, I don't know, obviously maybe I'm not sure exactly how it works, but the way I kind of understand it maybe is it tries to figure out, okay, this pixel over here is maybe this particular color.
Mm.
So the next pixel should be this color and this color, or maybe if you wanted to put a particular object into an image, then it can go out and kind of figure out and pull from, okay, what does this object
Yep.
look like,
Yeah.
and then try to recreate it within your image based on whatever's around it.
Yeah, because the model gets trained on like images. So like if you want to put a glass into like a photo, hopefully you're using a model that's been trained on like thousands of pictures of glasses or millions of pictures of glasses or whatever it is, depending on how big the model is and all that kind of stuff. But then when it starts predicting the next pixels, it starts comparing that against, okay, I know what a glass looks like because I've seen 1,000 examples. Does this look something like it? But then you also have the interesting aspect too is like, what if whoever created the data set used like just one kind of glass? Well, then you're probably going to get that same glass in the output versus if somebody throws 1,000 different kinds of glasses. You never know what you're going to get. You could get some crazy random glass that doesn't exist in real life. Who knows?
Right, right.
All depends on what goes in.
Yeah, it garbage in, garbage
Oh
out.
yeah.
Yes, like we said.
Yeah.
So now we talked a lot about how AI is it's a really cool thing. It's, at least now, it seems new to people. Um, and it seems like it could be really helpful for a lot of things. But then there's kind of this other side to it where people are kind of leery about it. They're like,
As they
what
should
is
be.
this? And I myself, I'm leery about it myself. I'm wondering, okay, what does all this mean? Honestly, I don't know, and that's kind of what scares me a little bit. So, could you maybe talk a little bit about what is it about AI that is potentially a scary side?
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that could potentially be scary. The one thing that I like to call out a lot is it's a term called AI hallucination. If you ever look it up, there's a good article on Wikipedia about it. But basically, because AI is a prediction or like the next step in the sequence tool, uh, it has a tendency to try to give you what it thinks would complete that sentence. So if you ask it like questions, the example in Wikipedia actually says, "Hey, summarize this article," and then they pasted a URL to like I think like a New York Times link or something like that. Problem is that URL that described a article didn't actually exist. That wasn't a valid URL, but because AI wants to complete the sentence, it's like, well, in most cases when somebody asks me to summarize this, this is what it looks like. So then it gave like a nice little summary. I've seen some examples too of there was somebody who asked ChatGPT, said, when did France gift this radio tower to, I think it was like Lithuania or something like that. And ChatGPT responded because ChatGPT also, when you give it something that sounds like you're an authoritative sentence on the subject, it's like, okay, well, what best follows that kind of thing? So then ChatGPT said, oh yeah, France gave it to him in 1890, and it's like, well, no, that's not a thing. Like that never
So
happened.
it's giving incorrect information
Yeah,
at this point.
So you always have to double check what's coming out, uh, especially like if you're uh, a tip for any kids in school who are using ChatGPT to write research papers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's one that's gotten me. It's like, well, at this point, that's totally cheating, and you might get it wrong, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. Double check it, read it, do
Hmm.
some proofreading and some editing. And if you do that, you'll probably be fine. But yeah,
Hmm.
take a look at your whatever's coming out of AI before you actually use it for something important.
Right, right, yeah.
Which I'm assuming, like here at Paragon, like when you're using like for audio or for pictures, you're not going to just like blindly send that out.
Hmm. Hmm.
Obviously, you're going to double check and take a look. But it's the same kind of thing with some of the language stuff. Is like when it's generating content. If you're just blindly like saying, "Oh yeah, post that to social media," without double checking it, who knows what you're going to get.
Right, right, absolutely. So, looking into the future with AI, what should we be looking at down the road a piece here?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the content generation aspects of it, and one thing that is pretty interesting and a little bit scary at the same time. OpenAI recently talked about how they're developing a model to generate video, like realistic looking video. I was watching one as like a woman walking down the street, I think in Paris or something like that. And there's this realistic looking woman walking, and you have like the shadows in the right spot, and like the reflections are just right. And it, you look at it and you don't do a double take. You probably think it's like an actual video that's been shot, but that it's a person that's not a real person. It's completely computer generated. So uh, using AI, there's a lot of new things that are coming in the future where you might see more and more of these things being generated to save a lot of time. And it's exciting, but also scary because like, what if somebody is able to generate like a fake video of
Hmm.
somebody that's a celebrity or something like that, and it's like, oh, AI made this video and this celebrity is saying this, and so it's
Right.
always something to be a little bit cautious about. Like,
And that's the thing that's kind of always or kind of gotten me with this new AI. I feel like there's a lot of potential for uh, you can't really trust it.
always
You
be
only really
skeptical.
trust it as much as not even really as much as the people who worked on it, um, because they may put in the right information, but maybe they made a mistake, and you still get the wrong information out of it.
Yeah, yeah, because it could be unintentional too.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, not trusting it, always being skeptical of it is my take. Use it and like have it generate things and do things, but always be skeptical. And then when you are generating things, like make sure that you're being reasonable with it instead of like if you're using it for nefarious means, like hey, like come on, like.
Right, right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
just be aware that other people will be using it for nefarious means, and don't trust everything that comes out of it.
Right, for sure, for sure. I've talked about this with my. I have a brother who works in graphic design a bit, and he was talking about how he's kind of upset with AI coming in and potentially taking over some of the job space
Oh,
in that field, and it's kind of a little bit of give and take because yes, it helps out with making things go a lot faster and it can create stuff. But I feel like, and I kind of understand him a little bit too, where it seems like some of the creativity is taken out of it
hmm.
a little bit to some degree. Like when you think about like great works of art, like in the past and stuff like
Yeah.
that that people have done. There's kind of a lot of subliminal messaging that kind of goes into an art piece, and I don't know, to a certain extent, it's like, well, how does I mean, AI is just kind of going out and it's getting random stuff. It can't think by itself, um,
Yeah.
and it's just kind of it's just doing whatever it was programmed to do.
You mentioned the art piece, and that's interesting because I know there's some organizations out there that are trying to figure out what's the better path for the future. There's one organization out there, I don't recall the name, but they are developing a framework, and they've had some success with that because, like to your point, like when AI generates a piece of art, it's not like something brand new that's never been seen before. It's more or less an amalgamation of all the artwork
Right.
that it's seen,
It's taking that and then it's kind of
combining
combining
it.
it. Yes.
So this organization is developing a framework to actually try to pull out like where did this artwork come from, so we can attribute the correct artists. So there are like different groups and organizations like trying to solve that problem. So it is interesting, and I am curious to see what that's going to
Right,
look like
and
in the
that's
future.
kind of where what I've also heard, there's a potential for copyright to come into play because um, the way I understand it, does it kind of go out to like the entire web and just kind of search and find things, which it might be a copyrighted piece of material that it finds and kind of throws it into an image,
So
which
that's the interesting part, is because like the AI isn't going out on the internet and
so
looking
it's
for
not
things.
doing that.
It's not doing that.
Okay.
It's the humans that are saying, "Here's 1,000 images. Let's send it into the model."
Okay.
So it's the humans who are going on the internet. Are they pulling copyright images and then sending that to the model or not? And if you can prove that they are sending copyrighted images, and that's part of where this
So
organization.
it's kind of it could be hidden in there, meaning that there might be a small portion of the image that's taken from a copyrighted piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Hmm.
And actually, this organization, they actually built a tool that I thought was pretty funny. You can actually add a layer, like it's invisible to humans, but it's like a layer of pixels that are just in the right spot, that you can actually protect some of your copyrighted work, so that when a human takes that image and sticks it into a model, the model that's reading it doesn't see the same image that humans see. It sees like this mess of like crazy pixels and everything, so that like you can't actually copy from it, and if you do, you might just get like a blur of just random pixels in random places, kind of like the static you see on your TV. So I always thought that was kind of the fun, like how people are trying to combat that already.
Right. Right. Okay. Very interesting. Well, Matt, I appreciate you coming on the show today. We will actually finish with a game as usual. I
Oh
didn't make
boy.
one up here, so because this was kind of last minute, but I'm gonna time you. I'm gonna give you 15 seconds to name off as many different AI programs or whatever that you can name in one go. So I'm going to give you 15 seconds. So you ready?
Yeah, let's do
Name
this.
as many different types of or many different names of AI programs that are available right now. So ready and go.
OpenAI has ChatGPT. Google has their Gemini, which also uses the Gemini model. Anthropic has Claude. Then there's also the Mistral AI model. Meta has Llama.
Okay. I don't know exactly how many you got,
Oh.
but it seems
got
like you
15
could go
seconds.
probably a lot farther with that if you had the opportunity. So there goes to show there's a lot out there.
Like everybody's doing AI
Right.
these days.
Right, for sure. Well, I appreciate you being on, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Main Street Marketing Podcast. Until next time, I'm Nate Kufal, your host, wishing you many, many successes.
Hey, thanks for watching the latest episode of the Main Street Marketing Podcast. We really hope you got some great information. If you know somebody else who can use it, share it and like it, because we want to help as many business owners as we can. And also, do not forget to hit the subscribe button and hit that bell, so as we release more episodes, we can give you even more content to help you in your business. Thanks.